Joining me now is Novo Nordisk CEO Mike Doustdar. Thanks so much for making time today.
Thank you very much, Annika.
Great. So, I really appreciate the time. And so this year we've seen the explosive launch of your Wegovy pill, but we've also seen an outlook that diverges from your competitor despite the same pricing headwinds. And so what would be your message to investors who feel mixed about the trajectory of your business in 2026?
We have for a while now has been speaking that 2026 will be a different year, different in a way that, yes, we are projecting a negative sales growth on the back of pricing headwinds that we have elaborated on, but it's also a year of growth in many ways. We will have more patients this year than ever before. We will produce more than last year and years before that. And we are also growing our pipeline for the future launches and the products. And of course, the pill has been the centerpiece of growth for us. We have had one of the best launches of pharmaceuticals, albeit it's a short period of time of some 5 weeks now. We today have 246,000 people on the pill. And this, of course, tells me that while the investors are feeling a bit of a headwind on the pricing side and the whole business, as you're alluding to, they are hopefully getting convinced that over a period of time that will wash out and that growth will come.
Got it. And, off of what you're saying about volume buildup and compensating for that pricing pressure, what's really going to drive momentum for that? Obviously, you have this Wegovy pill, but is it going to look like Medicare coverage for obesity drugs, or how are you thinking about the momentum?
I would say a bit of all of it. So
Okay.
let me divide it into different groups. Obviously, we need to open new channels. Medicare is a great channel. Is a group of people that unfortunately up till now have not been able to access these GLP-1 products. And by lowering the price, we were able to open access to 67 million people that are part of that group. So that I think is very good. On the other hand, we also know that there were many people wanting to lose weight. They had seen their relatives, their friends basically be able to do that, but just didn't want to have an injection, be it either because of needle phobia, taboo, I think is a big thing around injections. Now, all of a sudden, they don't need to wait. They can take a daily pill and get a very similar efficacy as to the injectable products that we have out there. And then, of course, it is really about trying to explain to the world that our product is as efficacious as our competitors. Right now, that is not the case. We have a situation where the current dose of our product at 2.4 milligram basically gives results of around 15-16% weight loss. Our competitor has 15 milligram of GLP-1 in their product, and that gives them 20-21% weight loss. And we have seen how a majority of the people get more attracted with the perception and the concept of more weight loss. We're introducing a higher dose of our medication soon, and that hopefully will also change the dynamic as we go forward.
Right. So, and going back to volume buildup really quickly, what's the timeline for that when you expect that to really compensate for the pricing pressures? Is that really like Q3, Q4, the middle of the year? What are you kind of timing there?
Well, we don't disclose a timeline, and frankly speaking, it's the reason for it is it's difficult to make that calculation. Mm-hmm. We are more than happy with the pill. So if that continues, of course, the timeline will be earlier than if it a little bit slows down. With regards to Medicare, we are right now in the middle of the dialogues and negotiations on exactly which month, which week is that going to be opening. And that again will play around with the time. You have to remember that our injectable business is very large. Mm-hmm. So the pill starts with 0. And that's why we ask for a bit of a patience. So no matter how well we do initially to catch up with the price decrease that we have had on the big business, then of course, mathematically takes a bit of time. But we are very hopeful that we're basically working day and night to accelerate those volume uptakes.
Got it. And going back to the Wegovy pill launch, and so what are the biggest takeaways that you have from this launch? You've previously sort of cited this idea where many of the patients are taking the starter doses, so they're new to GLP-1s. But what else is important for us to know here about that launch?
Number of things. First, when you launch a product, do it well. I think my colleagues have done an incredibly good job of really going all in with regards to awareness campaigns. Mm-hmm. We were at the big game. We are pretty much at every corner of every street. And that helps because it brings to the attention of people that the pill is now here. That I think is really good. Then explain the data. I think it's really, really important that people realize that taking a pill does not mean for them a lower efficacy. Often injections are associated with high efficacy, and pills are more convenient but lower efficacy. We are making sure that they understand, because the pill is a peptide, it's a large protein encapsulated in a special technology. So think about it, you're almost drinking the injection, and the gut, stomach acids are not touching it. That's very, very unique from a science point of view. Because of that, people actually get even more interested to come on board. Then lastly, the learning has been meet the patients where they are. We have our own novocarepharmacy.com as a channel. We of course have now many of the governmental channels and the commercial channels, but we went for the first time initially launching this product with all of our partners. That could be Ro, Weight Watchers, Amazon Pharmacy, you name it, we went all in. So regardless of where the patient is and used to, they can have access to this pill.
Got it. And when it comes to Wegovy pill supply, obviously you've emphasized that keeping up with that supply in the US, but what about outside of the US? How confident are you in kind of having enough supply for ex-US markets here?
What I can disclose and share with you is that we have filed for registration and approval in the European Union. That of course shows some sort of a confidence that we are ready to get going in some of the other countries. But number one priority is really to make sure, regardless how great this uptake will be, that we feel confident with the pill. We have seen when shortage happened with these products. It's actually not good. It has created an industry called the compounders on the side, which is not very good. It has been incredibly frustrating to the patients that walk into a pharmacy, super excited after all of our commercials and advertisements, but they don't find the pill. So we have said to ourselves, never again on a shortage. So I will make sure that, of course, first and foremost, this market is supplied, and then we choose country by country where we should go next.
Got it. And going back to the pill again, with this momentum that you have here with this launch, what is your expectation for what that's going to look like later this year, especially when you do have a competitor entering the market in Q2?
One of the things we learned from the injectable business is that the magnitude of the weight loss matters most for the patients. We have had a situation where we were for a while trying to explain semaglutide's benefit on heart, kidney, liver, and of course we had uniquely some of those labels. Our competitor was able, better than us, to explain about their higher efficacy when it comes to magnitude of weight loss, again connected to the dosing. No matter how much we pushed the heart and the liver and the kidney, the weight loss was what was being heard by the patients. If that is remaining the same, and I believe it is on the pill side as well, then it is basically notable that our pill in its clinical trial has shown 16.6% weight loss. Our competitor's pill has 12.4% weight loss if you take the pill continuously. If you use these two numbers, basically you have a 40% difference between the efficacy of these pills. And I think this is going to be very main selling points of the pill. On top of it, tolerability is very important in this class of drugs. Gastrointestinal tolerability is something we monitor. In our trials, 3.6% of the patients who went into the trial had to discontinue because of gastrointestinal issues. Equally, when we monitor the clinical activities of our competitor, that discontinuation rate for them was 10.4%. Albeit these are different trials, but I think numbers speaks volume. So again, on that front, I also think we have an upper hand. And then basically when you take a look at the price, I believe it's going to be similar. We have to wait and see, of course, what our competitors do. And then lastly, I say this is a Wegovy pill. And when we stress on the word Wegovy pill, it means it comes with a Wegovy label, and the Wegovy label has actually heart protection. And while maybe on the injectable side, it was less hurt, on the pill, we take a lot of pills for our cholesterol, for hypertension. So maybe some people would say that's an extra freebie. And that's why I feel very confident with our pill.
And so when it comes to compounding, as you mentioned earlier, this week you sued Hims and Hers, obviously, over their compounded semaglutide injections as well as the pills. And so why was it important for you to finally sue them now, even after, for months, they've been continuing to offer injectables or compounded injectable semaglutide at this point, even after the shortage is over?
Since I got my job, we have been speaking loudly to media, to the government officials, to all stakeholders, that we understand why compounding, mass compounding, I should say, got started. It was on the back of a shortage. We really don't understand why it continued. And I certainly don't understand why it's still here when the prices of the original product and the knockoff version has become very, very similar. We have expressed concern around patient safety, basically saying that the raw material of these products are coming from unknown sources, often from China, bypassing FDA. No one's doing any tests on that raw material, rigorous tests that we had to go through, our competitors often go through. And frankly speaking, we don't know what's being injected into people's body. And that is really, really a concern. Connected to that, our industry lives and dies from intellectual property. If we could not safeguard the years of investments that we have put into these products, if someone can completely ignore and bypass the system, the rigorous system that has been built around this internationally, and launch a knockoff product, it really puts a question mark how much innovation will come tomorrow, because people cannot recuperate the decade-long investments. Mm-hmm. So this is really, really important to put an end on it. We filed for a number of court cases during this period, more than 120, I believe. But again, we don't stop, and you have seen the latest one, once again this week, being filed.
Right. And so does the support that you're seeing from the DOJ as well as the FDA, signal to you that the government could take a more aggressive approach to compounding here, or what are you expecting, I guess, to see from the government?
I think it's a very strong signal. I think it's very strong when the government has taken note of it and articulates that very publicly, and we welcome that.
Mm-hmm. And in terms of compounding, when you get this compounding issue under control, hopefully this year, what is that going to look like for volumes here? And, being able to win back market share from compounders here?
I think what we are basically saying, and we have seen good examples of it, is that the compounders have a platform that they can actually use to the benefits of the patients. The compounders, first of all, of course, we have to differentiate between mass compounding and individualized compounding. I have nothing with individualized. If a few handful of people have allergic reactions to a medication and a compounding pharmacy can make a very specialized version of that medicine for them, that is fine. But of course, when you do Super Bowl ads and you go mass commercials and publications, I think that is not to the essence of what compounding was all about. They have a platform where, of course, they could cater to the original products, they can cater to safe products, and they can basically make sure that individuals get that expansion that is our wish. We've seen one of our partners, Ro. They were also originally predominantly focused on the compounding, and today are a very good partner of ours, and using their platform to get that access that we could not on our own master. So I very much welcome all of these compounders to realize that this is now the moment for them, now that there is enough product available, now that there is no longer shortage, to move from knockoff products to basically products that are safe.
Got it. And I wanted to ask about Medicare coverage. We kind of touched on it earlier, but what are your expectations for that opening up access here and how much volumes that could add? Is that something that's going to be more gradual to open up, or what are your thoughts there?
So in our guidance, we have said this is going to be a gradual open up. Of course, the size of the Medicare is large. I think 67 million people are covered by Medicare. When you take a look at specifically our products and the target group, I think around 15 million people would be a good number to target, at least initially, I would say. Now, it would be great if we could find a way to get access very, very fast, but I think that would be a bit naive. When we have seen in the commercial channels with commercial insurances and the PBMs, there are 55 million people today being insured for Wegovy, but only a couple of million are getting access. There's a lot of pre-authorizations, a lot of obstacles to manage the cost. I believe that with Medicare, we need to also have that dialogue plan by plan and really make sure how we can open up access in a way that is meaningful and actually matches, of course, the price that we have been given. But at the same time, of course, be aware that probably it's not going to happen overnight.
Understood. And I wanted to ask some pipeline questions here. And so how are you thinking about your Alzheimer's strategy when it comes to GLP-1s, especially after, the phase 3 trial failure that we saw last year? And how is that going to read out to your Wegovy pill? Is that something that you'd pursue there? Or?
It's a good question. We have not made a public decision on it, and we are actually also just debating it internally. You come across a lot of patient testimonials that want us to continue. So I take that, of course, seriously. You also see that 7 of the biomarkers in that study showed improvements. But the reality was, when you talk to people and you follow the trial protocol, you saw no improvement. So that's what we have basically announced. I do think that at one point or the other, it would be worth it to further investigate the benefits of GLP-1, because we know that, of course, it has an impact on the brain receptors on diseases like Alzheimer's. At this point, we, of course, announced our trial, and we don't have any current plans of further investigating that more. But as I mentioned, it's something that's in the back of my head.
Got it. And when it comes to CagriSema, can you talk about the role that you see this treatment playing in the market alongside the existing injections that you and your competitor has? And also, what are your expectations from the REDEFINE 4 trial that pits us against tirzepatide here?
Correct. So if CagriSema was available today in a pharmacy, in my opinion, it would be one of the best products out there. We're trying to, of course, show that. We have filed for registration, and we hope by the end of the year we'll be able to get that. And if everything goes well, it has the potential of being the first amylin-based product in the market. That's really, really important, I think, because there are a lot of benefits coming from combining GLP-1 and amylin technologies or molecule together. Now, we have had basically 3 trials that the combinations of all 3 will tell the full story. We had REDEFINE 1, which showed 23% weight loss. Mm-hmm. That's a trial that will basically have been submitted as part of the labeling for the registration. Mm-hmm. We have REDEFINE 4 that's coming up soon, and we have REDEFINE 11 that's coming up early next year. Why do I mention all 3 at the same time? Because the first 2, REDEFINE 1 and the 4, is a flexible trial. What that means is patients can decide at what dose do they stay on whatever dosages that they're on, and when do they titrate upwards. We know from products in the market, products being tested, that you increase the dose, you get a higher efficacy. So if a group of people don't go to the highest dose, then of course the numbers from the single view of efficacy shows dampened results. We felt when we designed REDEFINE 1 and 4, this is a bit like real-world evidence. People can decide, and you go higher dose, maybe you get less tolerability, but higher efficacy, and that we should try and find out. We were penalized quite harshly by the stock market when we released our REDEFINE 1 results. We showed 23% weight loss. The market, I think, had expected 25%. And all of a sudden, I think our share price was down some 18% that day. Based on that, today, we echo to the market. REDEFINE 4 has a very similar trial design to REDEFINE 1. We designed REDEFINE 11 trial by titrating the people to the higher doses. And if you really want to look at the weight loss efficacy number of this asset, you need to look at all the data together.
Understood. Thank you so much for the overview there. And so I wanted to talk about market share again. And so Lilly last week said its market share in this incretin market is around 60% and yours is around 40%. And you've also previously pointed to this preference share here where out of 10 patients, maybe 7 or 8 go to your competitor. So walk us through the sort of concrete steps you're going to take to address that widening gap here and try to close it, I guess, going forward.
Sure. I think if you just speak to the injection, because of course, one way to close the market share is to do better also on the pill. And then collectively, today, if we're speaking about the latest data points, today, I think Wegovy brand has the highest NBRX or new to brand prescriptions on a weekly basis. Because I'm using, of course, the prescriptions that are going for the pill as well as the injection, I combine it. And then I say that's higher than any given single other brands, including those of my competitors. That's one way, of course, to look at it. But if you just want to look at it apple to apple, injection to injection, then I do think, to a large extent, we need to explain to the public that when you take your medication at a higher dose, then you get more effect of it. If you take my medication at 2.4, you get more effect of that than if you take it at 1.0 milligram version of it. And likewise, if you take Lilly's medication at 15 milligram, it's very different than at 5 milligram. Data shows that very clearly. We have had a trial that shows the effectiveness of Wegovy 7.2 milligram, a dosage that's not in the market right now. If you take that, you basically lose your weight on an average of 20.7%, 21%. That is very much on par with our competitor's highest dose medication. When that comes to the market, my thought, my wish, my hope is that people will realize, okay, now we have 2 products with similar efficacy. In addition, Novo Nordisk product has some cardio protection, liver protection, and kidney protection. Maybe that's a good freebie. And then we'll see, of course, what happens to that preference share. And if it does change to our benefit, then of course that's when market share starts to switch.
Understood. And I wanted to fit in one last question here. So compared to other companies, obviously you're quite concentrated in obesity and GLP-1s overall. And that also makes you, as a result, feel this pricing pressure even more. So does that signal the need to further diversify your pipeline beyond obesity and what you're already developing right now? Or how does that kind of, what does that
I would say if you treated obesity as a single condition, then yes, one has to diversify. If you treat diabetes as a single condition, then yes. But we see this quite differently. We always did with diabetes. We see this very differently. When you're talking about a magnitude of some maybe billion people plus, they're not all having the same condition. It's called the same. It's all called obesity. But a patient with obesity that just needs to lose a few kilos and they get back to normality is very different than a very large person that has liver filled with fat, so fatty liver, and unfortunately has to go through liver transplant. These are very different conditions with very different medications, and we are actually having in our pipeline products coming for these 2 individuals that maybe the world calls them both obese, but to us, they're very different.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the time today. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you very much, Annika.